Hey guys, in this video Hermson teaches you how to solve equations of polynomials. These are not quadratic equations. Quadratic equations, you have the highest power is x to the second. Now, I'm going to organize my work like I normally have on the papers with 8 boxes, okay? So, you clearly see that. I want to make that real quick. And the first problem we have, and I'm going to tear off a piece of scratch paper on my own. And the only reason, and you don't have to tear that off, but I'm going to tear it off so you can see what I'm doing when I get to after I'm done factoring. Okay. We have 3x to the power of 4 minus 75x to the power of 2 equals 0. 3x to the power of 4 minus 75x to the power of 2 equals 0. So the highest exponent's 4 of the x, so I have to find 4 answers. Okay. Now we have the x to the 4th, but unfortunately for us we also have x to the second. So 2 non-like terms of x, so I have to do some factoring. I'm at 0, all these are set equal to 0 for you. Now there are 2 terms, okay? So 2 terms. So that means when I organize my work, I figure out what the GCF is, okay? Equals 0 outside of there. If you don't put the equals 0, it's not a big deal. Then I see if I have a difference of perfect squares. Dots. Okay, now let's talk about just the numbers 3 and 75. The GCF there's 3. If you look on a multiplication table in the third row, all the way at the end is 75, so 3. And we have x to the second power on the last term, so we have to factor out x to the second. So I'd like you to place 3x to the second over there, so then we don't have to worry about it. Now to find out what I have in the parentheses, I go divide by 3x to the second. Okay, so 3 divided by 3 is 1. X fourth, x second would be x to the second. And then 75 divided by 3 is 25. Then the x second cancels. Okay. Now, when I'm doing my difference of perfect squares, I'm looking at 1x to the second minus 25. Okay. Now I have a minus, and 25 it can be rewritten as 5 times 5. That's a perfect square. 1 I can get rid of, okay, because x to the second would be x times x, okay. Now if 1 is right here, you don't want to get rid of it, you'd write 1 times 1. But if you have a 1 in front of the x, you can delete it. But if it's like a 4 in front of the x, you can't. Okay, so I got x, 5, 5. Now let's carry these up here for those 2 parentheses over here for further inspection to see if we can break them down further. Well, the one with a plus, I know I can't. Okay, so that's going to stay the same. The one with a minus, the x doesn't even have a power, so I can't break that down either. It's done. So the factoring has been completed at that point. Now, how do we get that in as our answers? Well, here's what we do. The outside, if you want to put a parentheses around that, you set 3x to the second equals 0. Then I divide by 3, and x to the second would equal 0. Now, we usually get rid of a square root, second power with a square root, but I'm not going to square root 0. That'd be stupid. What this x second equals 0 means is that 2 of the answers are 0. 0, there's a multiplicity of 2, okay? Just means 2, if it was x to the third, 3 of them would be 0. Then x plus 5 equals 0. So I subtract 5 and I get negative 5. X minus 5 could equal 0. Well, in that case, I would add 5, and x would equal 5. So there you are. That's your solutions. 0 with a multiplicity of 2, negative 5, and 5. That's what you do when you have that exponent with 0. That just means that many of the answers are 0. Okay, next problem. 2x to the power of 4 minus 13x to the power of 2 minus 45 equals 0. So there are 4 solutions on this problem. Okay, we have the x to the 4th, but we also have the x to the 2nd along with it, so we have to factor. Okay, so there's 3 terms. 3. So to factor 3 terms, I say okay, do I have a GCF? And then I make my table. And remember, after the table's done, we want to figure out what A is and how we're going to deal with that. 2, 13, and 45, that's just a 1. Those are in the first row together. The last term does not have x, so don't put x. You can't factor out x. And the first term's positive, so the GCF's positive. So I guess we're not going to do that. Then I take 2 times negative 45. It's going to be negative 90. Okay, so that would mean I have a positive times a negative. And I would be adding to try to get to negative 13. So ABC, like you would with a quadratic. Okay, 1 and 90 definitely does not add to 13. 2 and 45, nope. Divide by 3, get 30, nope. 90 is not divisible by 4, it's a decimal. And 90 divided by 5 is 18. I think that will work. So we found it. Now you got to really focus on the next part. A is 2x to the 4th power. So if that's a 2x to the 4th and not a 1x to the 4th, you need to make 2 sets of parentheses. That's the first thing. Okay? And you lead off with 2 and 2. Now your x. I'm gonna start making a parentheses off the side with the times. X to the 4th is x second times x second. So you're gonna put x second. So you lead with the 2 and then break that up. Plus 5 minus 18. Now 2 and 5 are just in the first row. So that would stay 2x squared plus 5. You divide that by 1. Okay. 2 and 18 are both in the second row, so you divide that by 2 on the multiplication chart. That'd be x to the 1x second minus 9. Okay, and that's factored. Now pull those over here for further inspection. 2x squared plus 5, 1x to the second minus 9. Well, the one with a plus is finished. Okay, the one with a minus, well, the x has a second power, so we know that's x times x. We can drop the 1, and 9's 3 times 3. So we can break that down further. Okay. So x plus 3, x minus 3. And that one's finished, and that one's finished. Even though there's a minus, x doesn't have a power anymore. Okay, so equals 0. Now, I'm going to do this problem on scratch paper so you can see what I'm doing. So F1, F2, F3. Now you're like, how am I going to get 4 answers off that? Well, you just set each parenthesis equal to 0. Just trust me on this. So I'm going to set the first factor equal to 0. I subtract 5 and I get negative 5. Then I divide by 2. Now you can write the decimal or leave it, doesn't matter to me. Then to get rid of a second power, you make a square root. Remember, that could be a positive or a negative. Now, you make it positive and bring out I. Now, the square root of a fraction means we'll just keep the square root over the fraction. So I square root 5 over 2. So that's my first answer. And then the other answer is the opposite, okay, with the square root. I square root 5 over 2 with a negative in front of it, okay. Then the next factor, remember, if it's still x to the second, that'll result in 2 answers. Then x plus 3. That's easy, you just minus 3, you get negative 3. Then x minus 3. plus 3 plus 3, you get positive 3. Okay, so that I know that first answer looks weird, but it's right. Okay. Okay, my next problem. 2x to the 5th power minus 162x equals 0. 2x to the 5th power minus 162x equals 0. So there are 5 answers I need to fill out. You have x to the 5th, but you've also got x, or x to the 1st. So I have to factor. There's 2 terms. So I'm going back to the GCF. And then seeing if I have a DOPS, a difference of perfect squares. Okay, 2 and 1. Now I know a multiplication table. Just take your calculator quick and see if 162 divides by 2. It does. So I need to factor out 2. When you have like a 2 or a 3, just see if the other numbers divide by it. Okay, now the last term has x, so we got to factor out 2x. So I place a 2x there. And now I go up and divide by 2x to find what I have remaining. It's 1. X 5th divided by x is x to the 4th. And that's 81, and those cancel. Now the 2x I've already placed. Now I'm just looking at the expression within the parentheses. Okay, so we have a minus 81. I can drop the 1 in front of the x. 81's 9 times 9, and x to the 4th is x to the 2nd times x to the 2nd. Okay, so x to the 2nd, 9, x to the 2nd, 9. Bring that over here for further inspection. Now, if it has a plus, circle it. It's done. It's not a difference. This has a minus. Well, that's 3 times 3. That's x times x. So I can rewrite that in factored form. Okay, the plus would drop down. The minus, there's not even a power anymore on the x, so there you go. So it's all these factors here. So I make my parentheses. Okay, so 2x equals 0. That one's pretty easy. Okay, you just divide by 2, x is 0. By the way, when you write something down, one of the factors, you know instantly how many answers that will give you. This x is to the 1st power, so it'll be 1 answer. Now this x right here, x squared plus 9, that's still to the 2nd power, so you should get 2 answers out of that. So x squared equals negative 9, then I apply a square root. Remember, a square root results in a positive or a negative. You bring out the I. Now don't keep the square root because 9's a perfect square. It's 3. 3i. Okay. So 3i and negative 3i. Okay. Then x plus 3 could equal 0. In that case, on minus 3, I get negative 3. And x minus 3 could equal 0. Remember, x is just to the 1st power, so there'd be just 1 answer. There's something I'm going to start doing that I just thought of. Okay, so 3. All those are different. Okay. 25x to the power of 3 minus 100x to the power of 2 minus x plus 4 equals 0. So there's 3 answers, because x to the 3rd is your highest degree. Okay, so with that being said, we also have an x to the 2nd and we have an x. So obviously we're going to have to factor here. Okay, we have 4 terms though. So 4 terms, you set up your grouping method. Parentheses plus parentheses, line parentheses plus line parentheses, then line parentheses. I'm going to put a 4 because there's 4 terms. So we have 25x to the 3rd minus 100x to the 2nd. Then we have negative 1x plus 4. Remember, when doing this, the first term's positive, so we'll have a positive underneath. The first term here is negative, so put 2 negatives. Now the numbers. 25 and 100. Look in the 25th row and you'll find 100, so 25. 1 and 4 would just be 1, but you need to put it. And then we have an x second at the end there, so x second factors out. We don't have an x there, so we're ready now to keep going. So whatever I'm dividing by pulls to the outside, and the same here. Now to find what here, we do the actual dividing. 25 divided by 25 is 1. X third divided by x to the second is x. 100 divided, that's going to be minus 4, and then the x's cancel. And here I'm going to get the same thing, 1x minus 4. So within each parentheses we have the expression 1x minus 4. Put that out there. And then what I have left over is 25x to the second and negative 1. You need to put minus 1. Now let's pull those up here to see if I can break them down further. Okay, we have a minus there, but does my x have a power anymore? Nope, so that's finished. We have a minus here and the x has a power, so this could probably be a dots. 25 is 1 times 1, or 1 is 1 times 1. 25 is 5 times 5, and x to the second is x times x, so it'd be 5x, 5x. So definitely, that works into a dots. Okay, so those are both finished at that point. That's a plus. That's a minus, but the x doesn't have a power, so that's finished as well. Now, here's what I'd like to do. I haven't been doing it. Your x is to the first power. That's one answer from there. One answer from there. One answer from there. Okay, so that one's pretty straightforward. So 1x minus 4 equals 0. You just add 4. And you can divide by 1 or you can just drop it. 4 is your first solution. 5x plus 1 equals 0. So you subtract 1, that's negative 1. Divide by 5, and that's negative 1/5. Then 5x minus 1 could equal 0. So 5x equals 1, divide by 5, and that's positive 1/5. So those are your 3 solutions. Okay, my next problem. X to the power of 3 plus 6x to the power of 2 minus 4x plus 24 equals 0. So there's 3 answers because of the x cubed is your highest power. So it's a degree 3. You also have x to the second and you have x. So that means you're going to have to factor to find the answers. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 terms. So it's just like the last one, okay? Grouping. So parentheses plus parentheses, line parentheses plus line parentheses, then line parentheses. So I put the 1x to the third plus the 6x to the second. Then I put the negative 4x with the plus 24. Okay, first term's positive here, so we'll divide by a positive. First term's negative there, so we'll divide by negative. Now 1 and 6 would just be 1. 4 and 24 are both in the 4th row on the multiplication table. And we have x second at the end there. We have nothing at the end. At 20, we don't have an x at the end. So then I factor out 1x squared negative 4 from each set of grouping, respectively. Okay, so it's going to be 1x plus 6. And then that's the same thing, 1x plus 6. So I've got 1x plus 6, that goes here, and I put a parentheses around it. And then I have 1x to the second minus 4. Okay, let's bring these up for further possible inspection. Okay, that's got a plus, so we just drop it down. This has a minus. Now does the x have a power? Yes, it does. Okay, so I keep looking. 2 times 2, you can ditch the 1, and that'd be x times x. So that's a difference of 2 squares. Okay. So I would have x plus 2, x minus 2 equals 0. Okay, so the x is to the first power there. That'd be one answer from that parentheses. X is to the first power here, and x is to the first power here. So straightforward, 3 answers. 1x plus, I'm just going to do it here. 1x plus 6 equals 0. You minus 6 to get negative 6. You can drop the 1, so it'd be negative 6. X plus 2 equals 0. You can minus 2. You get negative 2. X minus 2 equals 0. You would add 2 to get positive 2. Okay, example 6. 18x to the power of 4 plus 57x to the power of 3 minus 10x to the power of 2 equals 0. So x is to the 4th, so that tells me there'd be 4 solutions. Now you got x to the 4th, but you've also got x to the 3rd and x to the 2nd. Okay, so that means you'll have to factor. I write these because that tells me, okay, x to the 4th is my highest, but it's not the only x I have, so I'm going to need to factor. So this one's got 3 terms. So GCF, then I set up my AC table, and then there. Okay, 18, 57, and 10. That's just 1, believe it or not. Okay. And you got x to the 2nd on the last term, though. And your first term right there is positive, so we'll keep it positive. So I write 1x to the 2nd there, and then I go up and divide by 1x to the 2nd. Knowing that that cancels, so that's going to be 18, x 4th, x 2nd, x 2nd, plus 57, x 3rd, x 2nd is x, minus 10. ABC, hold it together here. 18 times negative 10 is negative 180. So that'd be a positive times a negative. And I'm adding to try to get to positive 57. 1 and 180, no way. 2 and 90, no. 180 divided by 3 is 60. Aha! 3 plus negative 60 is negative 57. I need positive, so I'm good. I just got to change the signs. Now A is 18 and x to the 2nd. So obviously with an 18, you're going to set up 2 sets of the parentheses, starting with 18. Now your x 2nd breaks up. To break up an x 2nd, that's just x times x. Then minus 3 plus 60. Now look at your multiplication table. 18 and 3 are in the 3rd row together, so we could divide by 3 to get to 6x minus 1. 18 and 60 are in the 6th row together, so that would result in 3x plus 10. Okay, now we'll bring those up here for further inspection. Now this does have a minus, but the x doesn't have a power, so that's finished. 6x minus 1. That has a plus, so it's finished. Now I'm going to put that in a parentheses. Now what power is the x to there? 2nd, so I could expect 2 answers from there. X is to the 1st, so that'd be 1. X to the 1st. I think that will help if you do that. So 1x to the power of 2 equals 0. You're just going to divide by 1, and then you square root, but you can't square root 0. So remember, we need 2 answers from that. That just means 2 of the answers are zeros. Then 6x minus 1 equals 0. So I add 1, divide by 6, that would be 1/6. Okay. 1 answer from there. 3x plus 10 equals 0. subtract 10, it's going to be negative 10. Divide by 3, just keep that negative 10 over 3. So after you line up your parentheses, whatever power the x is to, that's how many answers come out of that parentheses. Okay, last two. 2x to the 5th power plus 2x to the 3rd power minus 20x equals 0. 2x to the 5th plus 2x to the 3rd minus 20x equals 0. So x to the 5th means there's 5 answers. And not only do you have x 5th, you got x to the 3rd, and you have x to the 1st. So there are 3 answers, there are 3 terms, so again, GCF table. Okay, 2, 2, and 20 would all be in the 2nd row. You have an x at the end, and that's a positive, so that's going to be positive. So I write down 2x over here, and then find the remaining amount by dividing by 2x. Remember, that goes away. So that's 1x to the 4th plus 1x third divided by x is x to the 2nd. I screwed this up. That should have been a 40 at the beginning. Sorry, it's still 2. I have the wrong problem. Make the 20 into a 40. Okay, that's going to be 20. Okay. All right, so ABC. 1 times negative 20 is negative 20. So that would be a positive times a negative, and we are trying to add to the B. Okay, add to positive 1. 1 and 20, no chance. Okay. 20 divided by 2 is 10. Nope. 20 won't divide by 3. 20 divided by 4 is 5. Right there. Okay. 4 plus negative 5 is negative 1. Okay, we need positive 1. So we make it positive, negative. Okay. Now your A is 1x to the 4th. Now 1's good news. I drop that and I just make 2 parentheses. X to the 4th is x second times x second. Minus 4 plus 5. Please bring those over for inspection. Okay, the one with a plus you can just drop down. But the one with a minus you have is x to a power? Yes, it is an even power. So x times x and 4, 2 times 2. So I can re-break that down further. X, 2, 2. Okay, plus is good to drop down, and so is the minus because the x doesn't have a power. Now, how many answers we get from each factor? X is to the 1st. People will see 2x, they think there's 2 answers. No, you go by what power the x is to. It's not to a power, it's to the 1st power, so that's 1. X second, I'll get 2 from there. X, or x to the 1st 1, x first 1. Altogether, that's going to give me 5 answers. Okay. So 2x equals 0. Well, that's not hard. You just divide by 2 and you get 0. Remember, just one answer. X to the 2nd power plus 5 equals 0. Remember, I'm getting 2 answers from this. Okay. So x to the 2nd equals negative 5. Got to apply the square root. Remember, you get the 2 answers because a square root could be a positive or a negative. Bring out the I, and 5 is not a perfect square, so we're just going to leave it. Remember to put the I down. So I put I square root 5, then I square root 5 again with a negative. Okay. X plus 2 could equal 0. That's just one answer. So I'm minus 2, I get negative 2. And x minus 2 could equal 0. Plus 2, you get 2. Okay. See, it'll help if you tell how many answers that parentheses has. Okay, last problem finally, 2x to the 5th power plus 28x to the 3rd power plus 90x equals 0. So there are 5 answers, okay? Okay, you got 3 terms, so GCF table once again. Okay, GCF 2, 28, and 90. Well, I know 2 is the smallest. See if 28 divides by 2. It does. See if 90 divides by 2. It does. So I think 2 is the one to go with. Last thing has an x, and we have positive, so I place a 2x. Okay, it's going to be 1 and then x to the 4th plus 14 x to the 2nd plus 45 with nothing. Okay, remember, I'm done with that 2x until the end. ABC, 1 times 45 is 45 positive. Okay, you're adding to try to make it to 14. Okay, I'll give you, to save time, it's 5 and 9. Okay, because you need negative, the signs have to match because you have positive. Eventually, if you divide by 5, you get 9. Now that's negative 14. We need positive 14, so let's switch them to positive. Now the A is 1x to the 4th. Well, you can get rid of the 1, okay? That means you just need 2 parentheses. But you got to break the power down in half. X squared, plus 5 plus 9, okay? Okay, so this one here has a plus, just carry it down. And that one there has a plus, so you're just going to carry that down. Okay, now how many answers we get from each factor? This x doesn't have a power, so that's 1 answer. It does have a power, it's to the 1, but we don't need it. This has a 2nd power, 2 answers. That is 2 answers, and that'll give me 5 altogether. Well, 2x isn't hard, okay? Divide by 2, you get 0. Remember, that one's going to have 2 answers. X to the 2nd plus 5 equals 0 because it's going to involve a square root to get rid of the 2nd power. So I find the square root of negative 5. Well, x could be the positive or the negative of the square root. You got to extract the I, but 5 is not a perfect square, so we're just going to keep that I square root 5. So I square root 5, and then the same thing with a negative. Okay. Then x to the 2nd power plus 9. Remember, I'm expecting to get 2 answers from that factor because it's to the 2nd power. So x second equals negative 9. Now we apply a square root. Then I write x equals positive negative. I bring out the I. 9's a perfect square. It's 3. So you write 3 down, and then the I goes afterwards. Okay. So 3i, and then 3i with the negative. So you got 4 answers, 2 of them which are complex solutions. Okay.